Hey, what's going on? Happy New Year, everyone. I see Marcus is on here, and this is Doug Show Live, we'll call it that. We're going to talk niche authority sites in 2024 and just kind of have a general conversation. It's the beginning of the year, so it's the time when the gym's really busy. People are starting to, they have a lot of goals. We have a lot of goals in mind. I'll tell you a few of mine coming up here in the hour. Let me know what you guys are working on. One of my friends, I see she's starting the, is it called like 75 hard, where I forget all the criteria. People can remind me here. Fill it in the chat or the comments later if you're watching the replay. But you work out twice a day. I think there's supposed to be like 2 workouts per day, like one of them outside. You're supposed to read 10 pages per day. You're supposed to drink a gallon of water. Don't drink alcohol. Don't have a cheat meal, and some other stuff. You do it 75 days in a row. And I realize as I'm starting to say this is going to come off worse than I intended. But I, I hate those kind of challenges because I know a few people that have done them, and basically they sort of like push themselves and deprive themselves for the 75 days. Maybe they don't complete it all the way, so they're like, oh shit, I didn't actually even complete a 75 hard. And then if you mess up, you have to start over again. And the issue that I have with it's generally sustainable. It's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to be really disciplined, but it's not sustainable over the long term. And I think you're way better off doing something that isn't perfect, that isn't ideal, for like a longer period of time. It's probably going to work out better for you in the long run anyway. The other reason I don't like it is I do like 80% of that stuff anyway, just on a normal day. So that's why it comes off bad. The thing, I drink a lot of water. Look at this big fucking glass, right? I'm drinking all this water here. I usually, excuse me, I usually don't do well with the alcohol portion, but I've done this a few times. Go dry for a month. So it's dry January. My wife usually does it. And I actually cut back quite a bit on alcohol last year around, I think, August forward. I did a pretty good job. And then I actually did a good job from a just discipline standpoint, but also I just didn't have the alcohol around. So that's super helpful. So anyway, that's one area that I do struggle with. Most of the other stuff, I drink a lot of water. I don't necessarily work out twice a day. Your body does need to rest. That's kind of another issue. But they also define, I believe, a workout can be just like walking outside, which I do have at least like 1 or 2 walks a day that are like 45 minutes each or so. Depends on what else I have going on, but I usually try and get out, and I do go to the gym. Okay. So Marcus says he's doing keyword research for a new niche site. You want to give it a try, despite some experts saying SEO is dead. That's one thing we'll talk about. SEO certainly is not dead. Anthony's here. What's going on? Happy New Year. We got Rich's Domains. This is Couch, I think. Happy New Year from Arizona. And yeah, we'll talk about some things. And there's been a lot of news out there, right? So one thing I'll point out, and we'll kind of start weaving into the niche sites and authority sites for 2024 and maybe moving forward. So it's been shifting, right? Google has been putting out more algorithm updates, and it has led to more churn. I think in the last couple weeks, there's even been like a spam attack, which reminds me, it sounds more like a Monty Python sketch versus something that's happening with the search engines. But we've had a spam attack. I could like picture them like flying out through the air, cans of spam. Not bad if you haven't tried it in a while. A lot of sodium, so watch that. But you can check out a couple of the hotter stories with Google being in the news. And one thing that I did, and I'll let you peek behind the curtain here. I'll share my screen, I think, here. All right. So a couple like new videos here, and I heard about that article. This is my channel, so you can go check out these other videos. I heard about that article by Amanda Chicago Lewis over on The Verge, and it apparently made people a little upset. And I think I can go picture in picture here. Boom, there I am. It made people upset. Part of it is that you you had to read the article. So it's called The People That Ruin the Internet. And the thing is, it starts off with it sounding like SEOs ruin the internet. And as it goes on, Amanda talks to more and more people, including Danny Sullivan over at Google. And it sounds like she's unsure, right? So she never said, hey, these people ruin the internet. It's kind of left open for your interpretation. But you had to read the multi-thousand word article, which is tough to do. When I read the article, I was, informed on some history, some good stories. It's good reading. And I laughed and enjoyed it. I thought it was great writing. And everyone that I talked to generally said that they enjoyed the writing, but they were everyone had their own opinion on it. Anyway, as I was reading it, I thought, hey, I think I could just go straight to the source. I'm going to interview Amanda and see if she'll chat with me and then interview her, right? So I emailed her right away. She was like, sure, let's set it up. So we did the interview like right around the holidays. So a little tough to pull things together. And then I thought it would be great to get SEO's reactions. And you can see here, people are watching it, people are commenting. People are commenting when they didn't read the article or watch the video. They're commenting, critiquing the people, the SEOs, saying they're good or they're bad or they're. It's interesting. It's more a psychological study in internet behavior as well for both of the videos. Like I said, some commenters over on the SEO reaction, they're more into trolling the people that gave their opinion. And they're like, they haven't done SEO in years, which look, no one knows what people are working on. They may be working on SEO all the time. They just don't talk about it. Right? Especially on YouTube, like people have certain personas in that's how this sort of format works, or on social media or whatever. You see a certain portion, whatever it is they want to share. Maybe they don't want to share other parts. I don't know what people are doing in their spare time or projects or whatever. Additionally, people don't always share what they're working on because if you're on YouTube, a lot of people may go mess with your stuff or copy it. They could just like do negative SEO on you or something else like that. Okay, so very interesting, and I encourage y'all to check it out if you have a few minutes, and it may give you some insight into where Google is going. One of the things which we did not actually get a consensus on is whether or not the SERPs are actually better or worse than they used to be. Is Google actually improving the search results? And I think, a couple people in the video contend, maybe they are better than they used to be. And I think it just depends on where you're looking. I was listening to the Authority Hacker podcast they put out today, and they were pointing out like parasite SEO. It's still an issue. There's sites that are clearly an issue, and it's really weird that Google just doesn't slap those specific sites down when they're happy. I've had manual penalties back in the day when they're happy to like just wipe a site off the map, and there's virtually nothing you can do about it. So it's weird that they kind of let that go on, even though they know which sites are causing an issue. So I'm going to hop back over to the chat here. So yeah, I'll give some of my opinions. And we got the silly walk attack, another Python reference. That's great. Good to see you on here. Oh, we got David on. A lot of folks in here. We got John out of New Zealand as well. David, you haven't been around in a little while. Hope you're doing well. And Marcus, yeah, do check out the video about the people that ruin the internet. And the thing is, like, Amanda is a lovely person. Like, we just had a great conversation. She has nothing against SEOs. She went in, did a lot of research over the course of several months. She talked to like 20 or 30 people. So when people just read the headline, and some people even commented on it, they were like, if she hates SEOs, then blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, you obviously didn't read the article or watch the interview, because I specifically said, hey, what do people misunderstand about SEOs? So, all right. Richest domains is start building a brand. Hope not too offensive, a bit pretentious. Should be AKA aspiring richest domains. Marcus says the SERPs seem really bad lately. And let me know in the chat and comments later if you think the SERPs are better or worse. And the thing is, and I mentioned it in one of the videos, right? I observed something very specific that was something I was searching for. It was like magnesium supplements. And the results were pretty bad. It pushed me over to Reddit, and I went over and read some stuff, and it was not helpful at all. And the thing is, the algorithm adjusts all the time. So by the time I recorded the video the other day, things were already shuffled around. Now, they were still like in the top 5 or 10. So they were still pretty high up. Reddit was pretty high up in the results, but there were some other things that were pushed higher. That said, there were also a lot of ads and a lot of other bullshit in there that wasn't actually helpful. So yeah, I think the SERPs will need to improve. And I mean, Google does try to adjust and improve, and maybe they swung too far in the direction of like user generated content, which me personally, I don't like to consume. Maybe, I mean, there are some valuable areas, but like it would have to be like a forum where I've already built trust with that forum and the community. But if it's just some random jokers that are trying to fill Quora with a bunch of sort of spammy answers, I'm out. Like, those are not helpful to me. I can't even trust what's on there. So for me, user generated content is potentially worse than a website where they're just practicing SEO, because maybe they actually did research to produce the article, where if someone is posting on Reddit, they're on their phone or something, on the toilet, right there, they're hardly paying attention. All right. John says, your interview with Amanda was a game changer for me. It pushed me to revisit my approach, diving into unfamiliar territory, like the Alligator Party, Darren Blatt, and others, real eye openers. Helen is on. John says Lars Mapstead is a famous fellow. And what is the print on my cup? Oh, yeah, this is the day after we got Georgie here, and she's like trying to lick my face. That was back in Montana. Don't worry about that drip right there. And then yeah, it's a homemade mug, just pictures of Georgie. Highly recommend doing that stuff. And then over here, I just got a lot of stickers on this Yeti. Hold on, it'll focus up. It's filled with water, so I'm going to spill it on my keyboard here. All right. And then you'll like my shirt even better, I think. So the one reason I asked Amanda for the interview is I was around a few like actual journalists or people that had like journalistic drive in New Orleans when I was at FinCon. So I heard my friend Paula Pant, who was on a panel with me, she just went back to school. So she went to the Columbia Journalism School for a fellowship. It's a very prestigious program. And I think she even specifically said, like, oh, yeah, like I'm focusing on, I won't quote her exactly, I'm paraphrasing, maybe a conversation we had, but she was thinking about, like, hey, I can go to like original sources. She has a very big podcast and she does that on her show. And I thought to myself, like, normally I would invite like Alex over at WP Eagle, like, hey, do you want to chat about the article that Amanda wrote? And that would be fine. And essentially, I did that. I asked 5 people, I did a little roundup video. It's great. But I thought to myself, well, I have a podcast and a YouTube channel, and there's no reason why someone wouldn't talk to me, especially if I provide some credentials, which I did when I sent her the email. Hey, I've interviewed people like this. And, I picked the biggest people that I've interviewed. And then that's sort of like the social proof that she needed to know, hey, I treat it professionally. I have a lot of episodes out there. It's not just like a fly by night podcast that I'm trying. It's not going to be a waste of her time. So I'm keeping that in mind, like moving forward for my show and like the stuff that I put out on the channel. Like I can go to original sources. Like there's no reason I can't talk to the same people that Amanda talked to, or talk to Amanda because she was part of the story, since everyone had generally it was like a negative sentiment, right? Like most people were not into the article. Okay. I'm going to run through some of the stuff. Feel free to ask questions here. And all right. Okay. Rajesh says, aren't you feeling cold in the t-shirt? I just got back from the gym, so I have like heat built up, although I'm drinking very cold water, so that's chilling me down. And my head is getting cold. Thank you for asking. And I forgot my jacket upstairs. I usually have one down here just in case, And David is on. David's one of our fine moderators. Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year. Anthony says, would you like to see if we can do a live stream video and review landing pages? I've been happy with the results so far. Landing pages for what? Maybe so. Okay, Marcus says, we don't have SGE here yet. Sometimes when I Google something, the first 4 results are ads. It fills the whole screen. Yes, that is what I observed. And further, that's not what I call user-friendly. Many ads are not relevant for the end user. Yeah, and the thing is, when I searched for that magnesium topic, I was trying to do research. Like I wasn't ready to make a purchase, and like they were filling it with ads like, hey, buy this specific magnesium, but I didn't know what I wanted yet. So it was actually like not, it was specifically not helpful for me. But that Google will take your money if you want to run ads for something, right? So they're like, sure, we'll throw the ad in there. But I'm a cynical marketer too, so got to keep that in mind. All right, John likes the shirt. Solomon's on too. And John's still in bed with a laptop. Okay. So I think one of the observations that I have is it's taken longer to start a brand new site and like get traction generally. One interesting thing is I still hear often from people who have a site, they're using the keyword golden ratio to find long tail keywords that are not competitive, and they're actually able to like get a little traction and get a little traffic. In fact, a coaching, client, someone I was working with, he had me audit his site, and he had really low quality content. I'm pretty sure it was AI generated. It was very generic. There were hardly any like fresh new ideas or any kind of like first person accounts. Like there were none. Think of it as a listicle with like one sentence per list item. So like you barely get anything out of it. He was getting, I'm trying to remember, I think like 50 visitors a day. I might be remembering wrong, but he was getting like 50 visitors a day. His site was a few months old, maybe 30 or 40 posts, very low quality, like I said. He was also using images from sources that he wasn't allowed to use the images from. So he was just like finding images, posting them on the site, saying credit to, wherever. It didn't even link anywhere. He did zero internal linking. There were no external links. There was no about page. Like all these things are all wrong. Yet it was such low competition keywords that not only was he ranking, but he was getting traffic as well. And it's not some like mystery niche or anything like that. Like it's a super common one, and there's, competition out there, but not very much. And there's, almost an infinite number of keywords in this particular niche. So it's like he was making it work. The thing is, if he actually like wrote the content or put a little more time into it or used original images, internally linked any number of our normal best practices, he would have been all right, well on his way. And the thing is, like, he niched down really far. It was a general niche, but he niched down really far as far as the keywords. The other thing that he was doing that detracted was the keywords were all over the place. There was no like topical content where he was focusing on like a silo or like just one topic area. It was all over the place. And he could probably clean things up, turn it around a little bit and get traction. So one of the comments earlier was or some people are saying like SEO is dead. It's really not. It's sort of in a churn right now. And people that were not putting in the effort, not putting in the time and research, they're having issues now, especially. Other people are too. Sometimes you do see the sites where like maybe someone has a ton of experience. They were doing everything that they should be doing as far as the Google like guidelines outline. They're doing, almost everything they should be doing, but they're getting mixed up in some of these updates, a helpful content update. I think that's going to change. I have a feeling that will change because people will want to get some of the, results like we used to, or like I said, if I'm trying to find some information on a specific supplement, I don't want to go to Reddit and have people that I don't trust provide their opinions. I'd rather go to a much better source. And I think Google is going to change that up. Now, supplements, it gets kind of funny with your money or your life, but you get the general point. So SEO is not dead. In fact, is quite a churn right now. And I'm reading Morgan Housel's book, Same as Ever. Great book. Do check it out. Check out his podcast too. It's really good. One of the sections is kind of relevant to the story where people, in this case SEOs, will be really innovative. Marketers will be really innovative to come up with solutions to the problem. And right now, while there's a lot of churn and some people are, shifting what they're doing and how they're doing it, AI is, I haven't even mentioned AI until right now, but that's changing everything, right? So not only is there all this churn, Google is trying to figure out what to do with like the huge amount of AI content, a lot of which was horrible at first, maybe a year or two ago, especially 2 years ago. But now it's not bad. Now it's pretty decent. It can, in fact, help you write like shorter, punchier content that is more dense with information instead of like a long, fluffy 2,000 word article. Maybe it needs to be 400 words so people can get on with their lives and stop reading all of that. So the relevant part from the book is because there's all this churn, because there's people sort of dropping out, and there's new ideas like coming to the surface. People are trying to figure out what to do instead, or how to adapt their previous business model or process or whatever. There's a ton of opportunity. So right now, really, there's a huge opportunity. It's just the people that are like either churning through and trying to figure it out, or they're like, hey, I'm going to do something else instead, or I don't know. There's a few choices, right? There's a few choices that you can make. So, all right, let's get back to some of the chat here. All right. So Solomon says, I was reading Neil Patel, and he said using ChatGPT. He said he is using ChatGPT. Can you tell us more? Sure. Yeah, I can go into it a little bit. Rajesh said, John says, my journey has had ups and downs from 10,000 visitors monthly and earning with Ezoic to struggles only with 2,000, but I'm refocusing on creating impactful content, not just profits. And Rajesh says, should I use DuckDuckGo or other search engines as I'm not satisfied with Google search results? Sure, I would say, you can give it a test. I am not an avid user of DuckDuckGo. I actually still use Google. Generally not satisfied, but a lot of times I search for stuff on YouTube. So that's pretty good for me generally, depending on what I'm looking for. But I would say experiment with other search engines. Yeah, certainly worthwhile. And Chef says, what's your approach going forward in 2024? So for me personally, I am focusing a lot on podcasting. And if people, I think a lot of the folks here watching live, I'm actually focusing a lot on podcasting, and I'm doing like a podcast boot camp to help people start their show. And the thing is, I'm just into that. That is currently what I'm working on. I have another show called Mile High Fi in addition to the Doug show where I talk about affiliate marketing. And I'm launching a new show probably in about little more than a month. It'll be probably in February sometime, but towards the tail end. But it'll be focused on SEO and marketing, but at a higher level. So the Doug show covers a lot of success stories, really kind of more beginner topics. And the new show will be generally focused at professionals or like semi-professionals that are doing this like day in and day out. As far as like with sites, like many things, you really focus on the same stuff that we have been talking about. It's just going to take longer, most likely. The other thing is I would highly encourage people to add an additional layer. So the approach is almost the same. Find low competition keywords. Pick your niche, of course, but find low competition keywords, probably using the keyword golden ratio. I think the highest quality content that you can get is what you should be aiming for. You should follow the best practices for EEAT as far as like you can, right? There's certain stuff you may not be able to get to. Like I have this interview with Kyle Roof here, and this is just a segment here. I encourage you to check that out. It's kind of like the minimum of what you need. It's only 10 minutes long. And there's a lot of other information out there, but generally get that right. So high quality content, low competition keywords, and the biggest difference is just it's going to take longer. I would really focus on building your topical authority. I have an interview coming up with Yao Yao. I think I said his name right this time. Yao Yao. It's coming out next week, next Monday. And we go into topical authority and building topical maps. So I would focus on that. But you don't have to make it complicated. You can, like I mentioned before, the student that I was coaching, like basically you can find like a niche, find a keyword, maybe like a short tail, like kind of a higher search volume, and then find a bunch of long tail keywords associated with it, and then just focus on that. Focus on that until you get all that content done, and then move on to the next one. So you don't have to make it overly complicated. It can be that simple. You can make it more complicated. I don't think you'll necessarily get more of a benefit, or maybe it's like instead of like 80% of the effectiveness, it's like 83% or something like that. I'm just making up numbers. But the point is, a lot of times we end up overanalyzing and trying to go a little too deep to the point where there's diminishing returns, and it actually doesn't help you anymore. In fact, it may hurt you if you do like further analysis and research. Sometimes you just have to like get going and move. So the approach is generally the same. The thing that I would stack on top of it is around different monetization, right? So making sure you have like diverse monetization, maybe not right out of the gate, but you need to have the capability to have different ways to earn money. Digital products are great. If you could figure out how to make that happen, it doesn't have to be your own digital product. You can be an affiliate for other people, right? The other area is to make sure that you can get traffic from different sources. And because I am pushing the podcasting idea, if you can add another layer, so usually we're talking about a blog, but if you can add another layer, YouTube is awesome, podcasts are awesome, an email list is awesome. So those would be the other things that I would like have in mind right off the bat. You may not implement everything right away, but it should be part of your sort of phased growth. And the fact is, if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel, you can go to a conference, be very small, but you can make great connections, and those connections will lead to business opportunities or a heightened authority for your brand in general. So I'm not talking about anything that we haven't talked about before or that you haven't heard, where people say, oh, you should try to build a brand. Like, don't just pump out as much content as possible. Build a brand, and it's a lot more defendable from competition if you have those other pieces in place. Again, it could be a lot if you're starting from scratch, but a lot of people have a site out there. So if you add a layer on top where you have a podcast and you can interview experts in the industry, and then you could take that podcast and build your brand. You could take that transcript from your podcast and then turn it into a blog post. You can use ChatGPT for that, or whatever other tool you want to use. Claude's pretty good too. I haven't used it in a couple of days, but basically you can take that one piece of content and build your EEAT using sort of borrowing like the actual expertise from someone else in the industry. And then it's not too hard to get introductions to their peers or other people that they would recommend. And you can see it, I mean, like directly on my channel here, right? So I'm talking about it, but like literally I've done it, and you can see it right here, right? Like all these people that I've interviewed. Yeah, there's some huge people. And over time it compounds, right? So it didn't start off that way, but like pretty early, I think I had an interview with like Spencer Hawes and a couple other folks like that. And just slowly over time, I've stuck around. Okay. I'm getting far behind in the chat. Before we get too deep, I do want to give a plug for my friends over at Authority Hacker, and they have their course, the Authority Site System. There's a link in the description. I'm an affiliate. The Authority Site System is 60% off for the next few days here. They've actually done some great updates here in the last little bit for EEAT. There's a bonus that you can get for EEAT, and they have a lot of sort of newer content. I can't remember. I think it's over 10, but I can't remember exactly. There's some new lessons in there to help deal with, HCU, helpful content updates, some of the recent updates in general. So do check it out. Those guys are super smart, and they have a great track record, especially for that. Their couple courses. All right, I'll hop it back in the chat here. Serge says, content is just another professional practice like programming. You have great programmers and not so great. And yep, true. All right, Khan is on here. What's up? Fruit, bat, cat. I got hit back in the day with Panda and then Penguin. To me, this is just the next phase. It's happened before and it will happen again. Yeah, it's just another churn. And a lot of people, dropped out during that time frame and they started doing something else. And then things shifted. And I think, AI is kind of accelerating that, and it makes it interesting. Masher. All right. All right. Salim Khan says, ChatGPT content working very well in local languages. Sir, can I work on these types of niches like mobile price in Pakistan with pure ChatGPT content? I don't know, but the best way to find out is to try it and then let me know. Or you can check out other content, right? You can see what is working, and if you see other content that you believe is AI, then that's kind of proving the business model for you. I believe, though, that in the long run, like pure AI content is not going to stick around. I think you need to have the personal touch. As much as I complained about the EEAT stuff for a little while. It was years ago. I'm sure I complained about it, right? I'm sure we did. But at the end of the day, like having firsthand personal experience and stories, that works pretty well. And I think in the long run, that will pay off. All right, Serge, I love it. This is a great question. All right. Can you talk about the high level process and timeline for creating a new show? Sounds like you do many weeks of work before launching. All right. So this is about the podcast, the new podcast. It depends. So this will end up being my fourth show. So I've launched, my wife and I launched a show in 2018 called Survive the 9 to 5. I think we recorded maybe like 16 episodes together, and then I did a couple more by myself. And then a few months later in 2019, I started the Doug Show, which is still going on. And then I was going to say, I have a friend who he and his wife, they just launched a new podcast. It's called Money with Mindy. It's my co-host, Carl Jensen from the Mile High Fi show. And they really started maybe a couple weeks ago. So I think they recorded some episodes a while back. They ended up changing their direction a little bit, and then they just recorded some fresh ones. So I think you can do just a couple weeks. So for me, in this particular show, I don't have my notebook down here, but the new show, which is actually still unnamed, I have some ideas kicking around, but it's unnamed. So Serge, I have big plans. I'm not going to spell it out here. I am doing the boot camp. So that'll be like internal stuff until I launch and get results. But for me, I'm going to try something a little bit different to launch my show specifically, where I'm taking some ideas from other mediums, and I'm going to try to do that with my podcast. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen this done before. The other part with my show, I'm going to design it with the intent to sell it. Also kind of a strange thing to do, but I have my own shows, right? So this is sort of like a pure business experiment that's kind of fun, where I'm going to test it out. when I chatted with my buddy Matt Giovanisi, he has a blog, and now I guess it's a shut down community, but he had something called Money Lab. I think it's still out there as far as the blog post, and he would just like he would test things out and like document it there. And he was like, yeah, this is kind of the a cool thing that you're doing. This is what I was trying to do with Money Lab. I think Matt ran into some issues where, I mean, he would come up with experiments, but he was running it on his like normal brand, so it was a little bit less transferable. So in my case, yeah, I'm preparing. I have some specific ideas for like the format of the show. So generally what I'm doing as far as the process and timeline, technically you could do this in like 2 weeks or so if you were like, all right, I need to order a microphone. I want to come up with a handful of show ideas. And the one thing I can tell you, it's probably good to have a pipeline of episodes where you have a few weeks in case something goes wrong. You don't have to publish weekly, by the way. Some people will publish, once a month or whatever works for them. But that is the general idea. The process, it's very similar to a lot of the things we do here, where you come up with a niche, you come up with some topics, you do some research ahead of time. If you're doing an interview show, then maybe you don't have to research very much except for who you're chatting with. But depending on what you're covering in your show, you can kind of have the same kind of question. One thing to note, it's kind of boring to have the same exact question for every person. There's a show that I listened to when I first got started called Entrepreneur on Fire. I don't know what it's called now, something different, but it sounded interesting at first. But after I listened to maybe like 20 or 30 episodes, I was like, this is boring as shit. Like, I don't want to hear the same exact question and zero follow ups. But he was trying to do something different. It was a very popular show, and they rode off into the sunset. So for me in this case, I'm gonna try to have roughly 6 weeks to get everything together, but I'm gonna be doing a tremendous amount of work. The other part that I'm gonna do, which you might be able to observe I think I could show you even. You might be able to see if I go over here to the people that ruin the internet. So one thing I did, hopefully the volume's not going to come through here. All right. I put the transcript. So some people, I am told, don't like video. Not y'all, though. You like video. They don't like to listen to stuff. They just want to read it. Really, they want to skim it. And whenever I got this feedback in the past, I was basically like, I want you to listen to the show. I don't want you to read the thing. I want you to listen to the show. And basically the people that want transcripts are like, I'm not going to listen to your show. I just want to be able to get the information and move forward. So I was like, well, I want you to listen to the show, so you just don't get it. Part of the issue was it cost a pretty decent amount of money back in the day to get transcripts created, like $1 per minute. Like that, like it was not cheap to get a transcript done. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to do it. Now it's much easier with the software that's out there. So anyway, I have this whole transcript right here. Pretty easy to get my VA to move this over using Descript, right? So didn't mean to zoom in there. So what you could do is, like I said, take this and tell ChatGPT or another tool to write a blog post that's 400 words based on this transcript. And then it cuts out a lot of the extra stuff. And that is something that I'm planning on doing for the new show and I'll probably do it for the Doug show as well, because, there's seemingly like great content in there. I just need to take it out and put it in a different format and just repurpose that content. So when you talk about that, Serge, like it ends up being, not just the interview, not just a little editing, not just getting the transcript and scheduling and the thumbnail, but then you're doing it like a blog post. So, and I'll share all this whenever the time is right, But it ends up being like a multi-phase thing where, okay, I'm not going to put it on social media because I don't care about social media, just my own personal choice. But there are areas which I think could be valuable where I will repurpose the content there and it just won't be social media. Okay, long answer. All right, John says, life's briefly halted my website dreams, but I'm back on track now. Embracing AI for quality content. I'm exploring low fruits and longer refined articles. And you dropped eZoic. Okay. Okay. And Serge says, because now there's AI software that spits out compelling content and videos. Right. Yeah. All right. Salim says, next question. Should I create a niche website or do you provide SEO services or do provide SEO services? And I have 2 years experience in SEO and blogging. Can you give me a roadmap where to focus? It depends on your timeline in general. Based on the information that you've given me in the question, I would say if I were you, I would probably focus on providing SEO services. I think that would be the fastest route to earn money and hopefully be a bit immune to algorithm updates. So that is the thing, right? So I still think, checking out the authority site course from Authority Hacker, it's a it's a great course. It's a fine business model, especially if you're getting started or doing something on the side. I think you run into the potential for issues depending on how you manage your money, which honestly, traditionally, people are really bad at it. But the issue with solely relying on Google search to get traffic for your main income source, it is extremely volatile, right? So it's extremely volatile like this past year. It wasn't always like that. It was a lot more stable for a very long time, but there's a lot of churn, right? So I think everyone can agree on that point. Whether the SERPs are better or worse, right? It's debatable, but the churn is real and it's impacting like people's livelihood. So if you're just asking me, all right, I want to do this. Should I create a niche site or should I provide services? You can earn money immediately if you provide services. You can learn the skills to provide those services by working on a niche site. And there's nothing better than, you have a site going, you've done the hard work, you've laid a great foundation. Maybe you've spread your platform so that you're getting, traffic from Instagram. Maybe you're getting traffic from Pinterest. Maybe you have a podcast and a YouTube channel as well. So you're getting traffic from all these different sources and you have a bit more of a moat around you. So not only do you have a diverse traffic source, a set of diverse traffic sources, but you have a moat where like someone can't just jump in and immediately compete with you on all those things. It'd be pretty tough, especially if, when you first start, you don't have any history behind you, but you should really focus on things that will compound over time. Again, we look at my set of videos or you look at the number of podcasts that I've done. I had, in the beginning, I had 0 of those, but now a few years later, I have a lot of them. And I couldn't, you can't rush it, right? Like if I was like, all right, if someone was like, hey, I want to do this as fast as possible. And they're like, I want to do 500 podcasts in the next year, they're going to have a pretty rough time. But over a longer period, they're going to be like in great shape. You just need a longer timeline. Serge says, recommend AI as a research tool. Yep, I do too. Rewrite using your brain, match your voice. All right, Rajesh says, can a single person working full time with an economical budget and medium level knowledge build an authority site in 2024? Yes. and I'm just going to make some assumptions about what you mean economical budget and a medium knowledge level. Yes, you can. It depends on what your goal is and your timeline, right? So again, I've been really geeking out with Morgan Housel. Read his book Psychology of Money just like a week ago, and I mean it's a huge bestseller. I was like, I don't really care. It's a really good book, and a lot of my content coming up is going to be like based on some ideas from it. But here's an interesting thing. Here, actually, people don't talk about this in the sort of niche site area either. But Morgan specifically talks about this. So I'm getting a lot of great ideas for content for this channel from reading books that are not related to marketing or SEO at all. So one of the quotes, which I don't remember who it's from, basically it's like you learn more from other industries about your industry, right? So you learn more about your industry from other industries where you take ideas and you're like, oh, is that happening in mine? And then transfer the idea over. So it'll seem like, I mean, it is insightful because someone hasn't taken that idea and moved it over. Like the podcast that I'm launching, I don't know if it's going to work, but like looking at, number one, what I know about podcasting and seeing people launch shows and how I've launched shows, some other observations, plus what I see can work in other industries. I'm like, it seems like it should work okay if I give it a shot. Maybe some people have tried it out with podcast or YouTube or whatever, but they haven't talked about it. And it's definitely not a widespread thing. And again, this is my fourth podcast that I'll be launching. So I've done it a few times. Most people don't launch that many. Some people do, but most people don't. So I have a couple iterations to practice this. All right. And John says, I should have kept building the site. Yep. And that's the thing, and John, you're okay. Like you just have a longer timeline. So basically putting it all together, like you want something where you have a long timeline where your efforts are compounding over time. And it may not be obvious at first, but once you have, like, I think I have almost 2,000 videos on the channel, like that pays off like over time. It'd be really hard for someone to say, hey, I want to start a channel and I want to have 2,000 videos in even like 3 or 4 years. Like that's pretty tough. That's a lot of videos. So if you could do something over a long period of time, you might be able to outlast your competition. I mean, really, that's what I've done. I've stuck around longer than a lot of people that I started with. There's a handful of folks, but not that many. Really, not that many. I mean, and the other thing is like the people that are still around, we've like adapted and changed like what we're working on in some capacity. Not everybody 100%, but like there's definitely layers. Otherwise, it gets boring. All right. Great session today. Thanks, folks, for asking questions. Feel free to keep going, ask more. Marcus says, how is it possible that a low domain authority site with a low page authority can outrank a high domain authority with high? It's not an exact match keyword either. So I think it depends on the keyword or example that you have found. So the answer will vary most likely. My gut tells me it probably has something to do with the search intent, or maybe in addition to the search intent plus the content quality in general and like what is really on that page. So those would be the things that I would look at. And we could find examples where, basically it's kind of a newer site, but they've done a really good job covering it. The other thing is like, it could just be a fluke, right? When we're talking about Google search being like kind of flipped upside down a little bit, and some things are ranking that shouldn't really um, rank or are actually ranking. And further, right? So low quality outranks high quality and authority. So, and the thing is, like, if, and you're saying it's not an exact match keyword site either. So yeah, I would say like maybe search intent, and then the other thing would be like the quality of the content, which the main thing is like it impacts the visitor metrics and experience overall. So how is the visitor interacting with the content? So I'd be curious, Marcus, and if you do research, shoot me an email. But I think if you researched and checked out the article, like how is that different than some of the other content? Do they have like real firsthand knowledge? Do they have like videos on there that they produced? Is there some other like traffic source? Like maybe they're getting a lot of social traffic or something like that. So I would research as much as you can, but some of the stuff you won't be able to figure out based on like public available information. But if you look at the content, you should have a good handle on that. Right. Rajesh says, who do you recommend for podcasting and YouTube monetization at a beginner level? Podcasting and YouTube monetization. I'm not really sure. I don't know the context of your question as far as like podcast monetization. Okay, well I could tell you in in general, YouTube monetization, if you're using just like AdSense, is pretty bad. Like you have to get a lot of views for it to add up very much. So I generally don't have ads on my videos because I don't want I don't want those ads running, and it doesn't pay very much generally. As far as podcasting, it depends on your niche, but my shows are generally in the business area. And I think when I've talked to agencies, it's something around, I think, $25 to $35 per 1,000 downloads for the RPM, the revenue per mil, which is per 1,000. And generally, that's far less than I would earn getting someone on the email list and then marketing my own products or other affiliate software deals or whatever. So generally, that's the guidance. It's pretty, depending on your show or shows or channel or whatever, if you have a very general audience that does get a huge number of views or downloads, then the volume makes up for the low RPM. But generally, like it's a bad way to monetize. So I would generally recommend people like monetize with their own products or affiliate deals if they can, or have direct ads with companies that you're, partners with, which is what I've done in the past. And John says that your cat doesn't like the t-shirt. It's all right. It's not for everyone. Not for everyone. All right. So I'm looking. Okay. I'm looking at some of the chat here. So specifically, you're looking at pre-production. So what do you do? Validation, calendars, research. I know it's a pain in terms of post-production, but it would be great to get a making of a new podcast series, a fly on the wall, clips and timeline. You could even charge for it. Yeah, Serge, I already have that, so I can put a link for you. Yeah, I'm literally doing like a boot camp that will become a course in the future. Um, and I'll share some of it as I go on my podcast and on YouTube because it is great content. I mean, the thing is, I'm building the podcast to sell it. So let me just grab the link for you here. And you could check it out here if you want to. But basically, like if you want to launch a show, we're going to go through like all the details. I'm sharing everything within the boot camp there. Okay. So yes, you could even charge for it, indeed. So I'll be sharing some stuff. A couple things I could tell you right off the bat, as far as like pre-production and content calendars. I use Trello and just have a very simple content management system. I have like another monitor right there. So I have my Trello boards for my various shows, and super easy to train my assistants and other collaborators on how to use it. So it's super easy, and I can see like how many shows are recorded, how many are in the pipeline, how many are scheduled, and like very clearly see the calendar view. So I know like, hey, I'm going to take a month off. Do I have all the shows I need for the various shows, right? Or all the episodes for the various shows. And research, fairly straightforward. I mean, one thing that I've mentioned is once you I've done a lot of interviews at this point. So once you kind of have a set of questions, you can ask not necessarily the same exact question, but customize the question for whoever you're talking to. And it works out pretty well. And it's very fluid. I'm interested in whoever I'm talking to. So we're able to go down a tangent, maybe something unrelated, and then pull it back and go into the topic area and then find out like, hey, what didn't work out with your website that you thought was going to work out, right? That's kind of a standard question. It's almost like an interview question as well. And post production, you were saying, post production would be tough, but yeah, making a new podcast, it should be pretty interesting. I will most likely be kind of like you're saying, record like a behind the scenes set of videos. So at the end, after it's launched, I should have footage from like the beginning where I'm like, I've recorded 0 shows so far, which is the case currently. But at the end, I'm like, all right, I recorded a few shows. I I'm thinking this is not going to work out because of X, Y, and Z, or this should work and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Good question. Serge, do check out the boot camp. It sounds like you are. I love it that you're asking questions. A lot of times when I go into podcasting, actually, I saw like people dropped off the live stream. I happily run across Ariel Phoenix's very informative streams. However, it feels like being in domains in the web is not a big thing for ladies. In a recent stream, about 6 were called to Zoom, no women. Is there a way to find a list of female participants in this field? You went to a digital event and felt so unwelcome that I quit YouTube Live for a few months. Maybe it's more my age plus the wrong gender. And Doug interviews many influencers of all ages and genders, but I don't feel that's true for all. Yeah. I think I think you're right. Yeah, I actually make a strong effort to interview a lot of female women, ladies. And yeah, I think ladies are out there, but there are fewer. I think there are fewer, and then there might be fewer that are online, like sharing their story, or maybe more people like in practice. But you know, I think it's a symptom of the industry for sure. And yeah, I think I was on a live stream not too long ago, And yeah, it was six guys. The roundup that I just did was five males responded back. But I mean, I don't know of a list specifically, but I think you've identified a niche. If you wanted to dive into that, like that makes sense to me. Right. Okay. Salim Khan says, I have a website that has 1,400 members on Telegram, 1,300 on WhatsApp, and 30,000 emails of my website's niche. But the issue is people are looking for free stuff. I don't really know how to monetize this type of audience. Can you tell me how to monetize in a niche in a better way? Like some majority of people looking for Canva Pro for free. Okay. Yeah, this is great question. One issue, right? You could build a huge email list. If, let's say, I was giving out, I'm just making it up. For example, I was going to give away like a $5,000 Amazon gift card, right? I can get a lot of people to opt in and put in their email address and run a contest. But it's just like a random set of people, which is maybe a little bit more random than what you're describing. But if you have people that are looking for free stuff, it'll be harder to sell them things. Here's another example. If I was building an audience around maybe targeted at college students typically, not always, but typically they don't have a lot of expendable money. If they do, it's probably not like a huge amount of money. They're probably on a tighter budget than someone who has like a 20-year career and they're sort of middle aged. So the college audience is not going to have as much extra money to spend, if any. One other example is like the frugality movement. You're probably not going to be able to sell a course to people who are trying to just save the maximum amount of money and they really dislike spending money. It's going to be very difficult to separate them from that cash. So you do have to keep in mind that you don't really like, you need to have a very clear monetization method in mind before you build an audience, period. Even more so before you build an audience of people that don't like to spend money, unless you're just running like a charity, which is just a hobby. So your question is, how can I monetize it? I don't know if this will work, but what you would need to do is, I think the email list is probably the most valuable, but the others could be fine. But you need to find partners that will advertise. So the people are probably not going to spend much money, but you get a benefit from advertising. An advertiser will get a benefit of potentially referral sales, but it sounds like that's not the case here. So you need to find a partner that will advertise that is trying to spread the word, right? They're trying to just get brand awareness. They're not looking to sell anything. They just want brand awareness. Right now in the sort of economic climate, there's not a lot of extra money floating around. A couple years ago, money was much cheaper, interest rates were lower, so companies had more cash. They had an easier time borrowing money or getting investors. So they would potentially run ads just for brand awareness because they had so much money that they were willing to spend money that didn't get an ROI. So you need to find a brand that wants to just spread the word. The other thing that you could do, similar, is partner with other communities So maybe someone else has an email list. Maybe you guys could trade ads for each other, and you could get, you could at least build up your list, maybe with some better leads in there. You would have to segment it a little bit, but that would be one way to take advantage. So it wouldn't necessarily be like direct advertising, but you might be able to build a better audience by doing that. Okay, Rajesh says, how important is niche sites branding now, small to big level in terms of budget and experience? So I'm horrible at branding in the traditional sense. I think I do have some like brandability, but if you look at my site, Niche Site Project, almost no like traditional branding. It's like your system font. I don't even have a font picked. It's whatever is on your computer, right? System font. It loads fast and it looks familiar to you. I don't have a logo, so I don't do any of the traditional stuff. If you look at my thumbnails, they're just Canva templates typically. They're all over the fucking place. They usually are easily, you could read them and kind of know what it's about, but I don't have like the set of templates that we use. It's just all over the place, kind of random. So I'm bad at branding. But in some way, that is part of the branding, right? In some weird way, people know what to expect because of that scattered approach. So I think if you went to ChatGPT and just asked, like, hey, what should I do from a branding perspective? It would probably get you 90% of the way there. And maybe, you could use a unified color palette and stick with that. You can have a logo. You could probably have a logo created by like Midjourney or ChatGPT or whatever, or Dolly or whatever. Like you don't have to make it too complicated. So I think as long as you think about it, that gets you there. The thing that I do have for my brand in general is it's a platform, right? So there's the blog, I have YouTube, I have the podcast, and I have an email list. I don't play in some of the other areas, but the branding is sort of solid across there. So like one could look and see like, oh, there is a brand around that. All right. But I'm bad at branding. All right. And Richest Domains mentions to give a thumbs up. Yeah. So if you like this, do give a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you're watching. Subscribe if you haven't. That really helps if you actually subscribe to the channel. Marcus says, I'll do some more research on why the site is ranking high for many keywords despite having a low DA. Also look at like the other, like the Majestic citation and TrustFlow and Hrefs as well, if you can get data from there. John says, a mully over a business idea, a mobile copy van that also sells indigenous arts and crafts. I'm planning to enhance it with a dedicated website and branch into YouTube. Great. And Rajesh says to earn money from podcasting and YouTube. How important is niche site branding to earn from podcasting and YouTube? Oh, not too important because a lot of people, so to wrap the whole question together, I don't know, it went together. So how important is a niche site branding for small to big level in terms of budget and experience, and then to earn money from podcasting and YouTube? It doesn't really matter on your websites because people that listen to podcasts, they're just listening on their player typically, and people on YouTube, they're just watching on YouTube, probably on their phone most of the time. And the fact is, if you can get them over to your site, they just want to be able to read it, right? They just don't want a bunch of ads popping up all over the place. So as long as the name matches up, you're probably okay. People just want to be able to read it. Marcus says, another thing I noticed is that many sites rank high when they have the keyword in the domain. I assume this wasn't the case anymore, but I found many examples, not only exact match domains. So maybe it's still possible to outrank other high DA sites when you have a keyword in the domain. Yes, 100%. That is true. I don't think the person is on, but in December, someone was on here. I forget his name, but he was basically like, he was talking about micro niche sites. And essentially, he was talking about exact match domains and just covering a small number of topics, but very thoroughly. And I mean, like niche site project, like that's pretty good to have niche site in the name. And I do pretty bad on SEO these days over there. Just, I think if you watched or listened to some recent podcasts or videos, I don't remember when I said it, but I mean, I eventually I was like, I'm not going to try to play the game. Like I have some of my peers are publishing tons of articles, spending a lot of money on writers, spending even more on like guest posting, or at least I can think of a couple people that, they're spending a lot of money on guest posting and getting a lot of links and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to do all of that. So, but for niche site topics, like because I have niche site in the domain, it's not a bad thing at all. All right, Marcus says about a very good domain, and I was surprised to see it was still available. It's a competitive niche, but maybe I can outrank others because my domain contains the keyword. I'm not trying to rank the exact keyword, but on sub niches, I will give it a try. Yeah, cool. All right, I think we're getting towards the end here. All right, John says, I reckon looking at the YouTube channel might give people ideas for real businesses that use all the tactics from Doug to create a website that will supplement the business. Nice. Or just says, so niche site branding isn't a must. Not necessarily, but I think it's not a bad idea, right? Here's what you don't necessarily need to do. And I've seen this so many times where people focus too much on branding and they're spending a lot of money. They're spending a lot of time and resources trying to get their branding right when they just need to do the work, make some sales, and stop messing around with the font or stop messing around with the color palette. So, and I've perhaps taken it too far where at some point maybe it would be a good idea to spend more time on branding, but there's a good chance that like it's not going to show like a specific ROI for a very long time. And I would just make sure that you do a minimum amount, but keeping things like kind of vanilla is not a bad thing. I mean, would you rather go to a site that has really good branding that takes forever to load and they have a bunch of stuff that it doesn't view well on your phone, right? Like most people are on their phone. So if you're making it way more complicated than it needs to be, that's not going to help you. They just want to be able to read the information and maybe have a little logo and that sort of thing. All right, so I think we made it through. Marcus does say branding helps with EAT, which helps to rank higher. Potentially, yeah. I would say certainly that's what Google would want. All right, and Rajesh says, does Google hate affiliate sites even if they're generally created? I would say it seems like it. It seems like it. All right. I think we made it through all the questions. Another shout out to check the link in the description. Authority Hacker has the, let's see, 7 days. So it's 60% off. Until January 7th. All right. So the Authority Site System. check it out. They also have free training. So if you're like, I don't know if I want to enroll yet, you can check out the free training, also linked in the description, 7 ways to make your site 83% more successful. And it's free. So you just have to hop over there and sign up. Thanks everyone for popping on. Be sure you're on the email list. There's a link in the description here. Marcus says, I love branding. I could spend way too much time on choosing a font, designing a logo, and it's something I enjoy. Readability is about choosing a font. Yeah, that is true. Readability is about choosing a font, but that's why I use the system font, right? That's another thing I hate. I like go to someone's site and I'm like, why the fuck are they using this font? It's so hard to read. Just use a web font. No one cares about your font. They just want to be able to read it. Okay. Gonna get out here. Oh, John says, where's the guitar? Play us a strum. Oh, I haven't done one of those in a while. I do. You know what? I won't move the camera, but I'll move the microphone down so you'll just see. Sorry, hold on. Learn music with that. Just a tiny bit here. I think it's probably in tune. Yeah, you'll just see how I'll be